The reason I'm bringing this up is that very clever people have come up or have applied the same principle to animals and humans, by the way, big deal in human sports medicine as well, which is they looked at structures, and I spent my whole PhD at one point in the last millennium breaking horse legs, so we know a fair bit what forces it takes to break things. And basically what we can see is that where we see clinical problems, which I've circled on this picture in red, these are the structures that have the lowest safety factors, which makes sense. So they're mechanically vulnerable. And now I learned in Frank's lecture that insulin resistance also influences that. So Frank, we need to talk, because I'm not an internal medicine people. It's way too complex for me. So I need your input in that. Because it might well be that metabolic changes weaken those structures even more. So we have a problem here. Horses are extremely fragile creatures. Horse owners are also a little bit fragile, but more mentally than anything else, I think. So this is all the thing that we do in biomechanics, right? We look at how does this all relate, how do mechanics relate to performance and injury. That's our deal. And regardless of what horse you deal with, so you might now say, well, I only shoe backyard horses, I don't do those high-level athletes. Well, I can tell you it applies to them as well. So what determines the safety factor? Well, one side is what forces, what loads does the horse have to cope with, and on the other side of the equation is the strength. So how strong are the structures that we have in the horse leg, so our bones, our tendons, our ligaments, and so on. Now, Newton was a funny guy. So Newton was professor in Cambridge in mathematics, and we all know him from the gravity type of stuff, and also the Newtonian laws. And certainly the third Newtonian law is very pertinent to this question, because it basically says whenever one object exerts a force on another object, the second object exerts an equal and opposite force back. And this is what happens every single time a horse leg or your leg hits the ground. The funny thing about Newton is he actually spent about 90% of his time trying to find out how he could convert his own urine into gold. But that was a very, very fashionable question, the holy grail of science at the time, so we have to forgive him. But just imagine if he would have spent all these 90% on things that are worth pursuing. Anyway, we often think when we look at pictures that horses work unidimensional, we of course have to be aware that yes, horses predominantly work in the sagittal plane, so one direction where the head goes, the rest of the body goes. But really, from a force point of view, we obviously have the biggest force goes up the leg, so the ground reaction force in a distal proximal direction, but the force really acts in 3D. So we have to bear that in mind, that it also goes mediolateral and craniocaudal as well, which we sometimes forget. So what influences that? And Frank, I'm totally going to contradict you. I do have conversations with horse owners about how fat they are and how fat the horse is. Maybe this is why I'm not in private practice. This could well be the reason, I give you that. But I do think we have to have those conversations, and we have to be, because regardless, 10 years ago, right here, I made a statement based on some mathematical calculations we have done that 1 centimeter shortening the toe equates to the same effect when it comes to tendon and navicular bone stresses as 50 kilos on the top of the horse. That also goes the other way around, right? And some of those horses, I mean, for a horse, 50 kilo is not that much. And some owners can lose quite a bit as well. So anyway, so the challenge is we do have to look at what the mass of the horse and the rider are, because that significantly influences the ground reaction force, so the force that acts on the leg. And the challenge we have, none of those horses will win a race, right? So especially in horse racing, we often already have that optimized to a degree, but where it's not optimized, and I have a real issue with that, is actually in dressage. Even some show jumpers, I'm like, really? I mean, this horse could jump higher, it would be a little bit lighter. But we also see an absolutely abundance of obese horses in showing. And that is not necessary. So I do think all of us equestrian people have a little bit of a role to play here.